Hello, everyone, and welcome to On the Couch, the podcast where we bring you intimate, thought-provoking conversations with fascinating individuals from all corners of life. I'm your host, Dr. Diamond, along with my co-hosts, and each episode will dive deep into the minds and hearts of our guests, uncovering the experiences and stories that shape their lives. From heartfelt personal journeys to groundbreaking ideas, On the Couch offers a unique space to explore it all. So, sit back, relax, and join us for a journey of discovery, connection, and inspiration. Welcome to the couch, and let's go.
Good morning. Welcome to On the Couch. Thank you for joining us this morning. We have a couple of topics that we will be delving into, but our primary topic today that we will be reaching our followers is forgiveness. What does it mean? And who is it really for? So it is very important that we get down to what that means and how that can help you when you're going through things about how do I forgive a person that I don't want to forgive. So we're definitely going to be delving into that. I'm going to be opening up today about Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health. What does that mean? What does that mean for our Black and Brown community when we're thinking about mental health? But of course, I'm going to bring in my wonderful co-host, and I'm going to introduce one of our special co-host, and that is Anika Keaton. You all have met her. She was she's the author that actually came on, and we interviewed her about a few weeks ago. So I'm going to bring them on with no delay, and we have Mark Lee with us this morning, and Anika. Good morning, you two. How's everything going?
Fine.
Doing good.
Doing good. How?
Yes.
The weather is beautiful. Finally, summer is upon us. So I hope you all are doing some wonderful things today after our show today. But, like I was saying to our followers this morning, we have a couple of topics that I would like to delve into this morning. The first one I would like to talk about is the president of Burkina Faso. Have you all been following Ibrahim Traoré? He is the president of Burkina Faso, and he is pushing back to the United States about his goals for his country. He's rebuilding his country. He's helping the people get free education, free housing, free medical health, things that they need that he's doing for his country. So I don't know if you all have been following him, but I have been following him really on Facebook. There's a lot of clips that are coming out about him, and I'm really proud of him. I think he's doing a wonderful job. There are other countries on the continent of Africa that are joining him and pushing back as well, because here in our country, it seems like there is a dictator. Do you believe that there's a dictator that is trying to tell other countries what to do with their resources? What do y'all think?
There's definitely a dictator out there. He's definitely doing that whole dictating kind of thing. And, he's learned from his good buddy, Mr. Putin, how to be a dictator and all along those lines. But as you just said, a lot of people are pushing back against him, including some in the not just Burkina Faso, but also some in the Black and Brown community, because he's got some pushback from that Mexican president who's basically like, you just need to stop that BS that you're trying to spread and all along those lines. And I think there's even been some pushback from some of the other women Latin American leaders that are basically like, nope, I'm not going to put up with that and everything like that. So even though he can sometimes come across as a very sexist gentleman and all along those lines, the women leaders, I can say, are definitely not putting up with a lot of his BS and everything in that space. So a lot of those folks are saying, hey, don't try to get that mess with us and all along those lines, because he keeps doing crazier and crazier things. I mean, some people are even saying that even with, and I'll get off my soapbox, with the whole MS-13 with Abigail Garcia and everything, and it was plainly photoshopped. And even the reporter tried to show him that it was photoshopped, and he was just convinced that it was MS-13 symbol on there. Now, given the gentleman did have a marijuana leaf and some other symbols, but none of those symbols necessarily mean that you're a member of MS-13, and the MS-13 symbol was plainly photoshopped. But he's sitting there going like, what's a Photoshop? This proves my point and everything, even though it's his people that literally got it photoshopped on there and everything like that, or at least some people that are allies of his. So yeah, he just keeps doing crazier and crazier things.
Have a dense way of thinking, like the brain does not register. Like I've always thought of, and this is not for all white people, but I do think that there is a dense way of seeing things. It's just like one way, and it's just their way only. And it shouldn't be like that. Now, that a classic example is what this guy did, Trump. He wouldn't hear anything else but what was in his mind and his followers, his minions, in other words, because that's what I think the proper term for the rest of them minions, including the Black people that are minions along with him. You are disrupting people's lives because you have a core hate for someone does not look like you. And there's classism as well. If you're not in the class that they're in, they are mistreating you. They just don't care. And when you have a person that says he is willing to send our Americans over because they committed a crime, that's a problem. That is a real problem to do that. How dare you? How dare you disrupt? Not that we want our family members to be locked up, but if they did something, they served their time. But for you to remove them from our country and send them somewhere else, how are they going to survive over there? How?
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to survive. And even to that point, they're sending them to different countries. He's talking about sending even American prisoners to El Salvador. And now he's talking about sending them to 2 African nations, and definitely proud of our motherland. But the 2 that he wants to send them to have some notorious history, because he's talking about sending them to Libya, which is the home of Muammar Gaddafi and everything like that, or Rwanda. And we know Rwanda had that whole killing field kind of activity that they had over there historically and everything like that. So these are not the friendliest environments that you want to send people to, and all along those lines. So I'm sitting there going like, why are you sending them over there? And some of these people have never set foot, or most of those people have never set foot in those countries and would have no idea how to survive in those areas, much less the prisons of those areas. So I don't get what he's trying to do in that sense. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
It really doesn't, and it's scary. It really is. I don't know, Anika, what do you think about, what is going on here with Trump and his way of thinking?
I personally think that, it's very scary for the whole world. I feel as though it's just his face that the government is using. I just don't feel like everybody, what he's doing, he's getting away with a lot of things that just one man couldn't do. It's not making sense to me. He's making too many decisions that we know is not allowed, and it has to go down, get passed down to different people. Who's signing off on this? Everybody.
Right.
I just feel like they're just using his face just so we can, you throw stones and hide your hands. I think it's bigger than that.
I can agree with that. Yeah. There's a hidden agenda, and he's the puppet, but he's a puppet that's can't control. They're moving the strings, but this puppet seems to be doing what he wants to do, regardless of what's being said or what they're telling him to do or not do. So, I just feel that he's one of those that you can't really control, because he say things out of his mouth and he can't take it back once it's said. And what do you do with that? So it's just it's weird. And it's unfortunate, because we are going to suffer. We getting ready to go through another recession. I think it's going to be really bad. I know he probably going to say, oh, well, I'm going to send them money, but we don't need your money. What we need you to do is get out of the White House. That's what we want.
Right. That'll help us out a lot.
Yes, and Elon Musk. I know we wanted to delve into him real quick. We're not trying to give him no credit, but
Mhm.
Mark, Elon Musk, could you tell us what he's on the verge of doing? You on mute.
Yeah, as I was telling you before, where he is located at and where his headquarters are, he's in the process of turning that into its own city that he wants to call Starbase, that he wants folks to take off and go to Mars from. But yeah, he's got his area in Texas that is the campus of his whole operation. I think it's the campus for Tesla and everything like that. But he wants to turn it into a Starbase city and everything like that. So he wants it to be its own city so that they can go off to Mars and do whatever else they want to. But yeah, he's got this proposed city concept named Starbase, and it looks like it's on the brink of becoming reality because residents are preparing to vote so that it can be an official city status. So, of course, there are some folks that are critics of it, and the locals are concerned that it will give the corporate giant more power over local property. But yeah, he's over there trying to have his own thing going and everything like that, where he can just sit there and go to Mars. As a matter of fact, one of the local landowners, Renee Madrano, expressed concern about access to the area, saying, people want to go to Mars, let them go to Mars. There's people that want to go to the beach and enjoy Boca Chica Beach. Okay, let's compromise. So he's saying, if you want to go to Mars, you want it to be a city. So, but like I said, a lot of the voters are actually people from his area. So they'll probably get this city, and folks will be heading to Starbase, Starbase, Texas, and they'll be, I guess, heading to Mars if they're going to Starbase, Texas, which looks like it's on the coast there and everything. And so I guess they're going to be heading to Texas. I'm not rushing to go to Texas or rushing to go to Mars. I don't know about you two ladies, but I'm not trying to go there.
I definitely don't have any interest in any of it. It's it's sad because, like you said, he will probably get that city.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
and they're
but
gonna be willing to give it to him.
Yeah.
But that's not the first time. There's another actress, a white actress that way back when, and she eventually lost the city. But if you will remember, there was an actress by the name of Kim Bassinger, and she had a city in Georgia as well as there for a while. So she bought a city in
Oh,
Georgia and had this city in Georgia, and then I think some Texas and taxes came up and everything like that. So she eventually lost her city. But yeah, Kim Bassinger had a city in Georgia and had her own little Georgia city there for a minute and everything. But like I said, she doesn't have that city anymore, but she lost $20 million buying an entire town. That's what she lost to at the time that she had the city. So she lost $20 million buying an entire town.
wow, that's crazy. But this is the stuff that they allow. Now,
Right.
if it was one of us, do you really think that they would give or President Obama a city? I doubt it very seriously.
I
Oh
doubt
no.
it.
Anyone that's black, they're not giving it to us.
No, I doubt it seriously. And one of the articles I was reading about, Kim said, just because you're rich and successful doesn't mean you're brilliant. Given some of the political statements posted on social media by an assortment of models and reality stars, this seems pretty apparent. So I can agree with that and everything like that. So that's just crazy and all along those lines. I know that this is Mental Health Week, and I know we're going to get to mental health, but I still got to ask y'all that question that I said I was going to bring up and all along those lines.
Sure.
If you're an athlete and you're an athlete on a predominant campus and everything like that, and you decide you want to get intimate or somebody wants to get intimate with you, where you go put it out on Snapchat, which apparently is what happened with a UNC basketball player, and he was put on academic suspension and some other suspensions after it came before the ethics committee because they do have rules of conduct even for their athletes. But I mean, I got that you want to. I mean, we all like to have our intimate moments, whatever those intimate moments are, and everything. Just because you got Snapchat and just because you got a camera in your mirror and everything doesn't mean you got to record everything. That's my philosophy on it, and it seems like that can definitely wreck some people's mental health as well. Because I'm just wondering what the mental health is going to be to that young woman, even in terms of trying to get intimate with any other partner, because she's a young lady, 19, 20 or whatever, and don't care whether she's black, white, or purple, but she's a young lady, and now she's gone through what basically is trauma to me and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see how she's going to deal with that trauma and be able to cope with that trauma, even in creating a successful relationship of some sort or another, like with a new boyfriend, if she's got one, or even a husband when she possibly gets one of those one of these days and everything like that, if that's what she wants. Not saying everybody has to have one because I've been single forever, but I'm just saying that what is the notion that you ladies have in terms of this idea of how this could be traumatic for this young lady, because like I said, she was just coming in. Apparently they were going back and forth. He tried to get her to come, and eventually she acquiesced and came to the room, and then later found out that he had been Snapchatting her and everything and recording it, and she did get the copy of the video and had him, I guess, erase it and everything. And she also tried to make sure there were no other cameras out there or other recordings. But I think sometimes people get a little bit too crazy with what they want to be personal about and what they want to show. But I want to y'all's ladies take on that, since it is a mental health quandary.
It is definitely a mental health. There are several things that came up for me while you were talking about it. First thing is deception and manipulation, right? Because he had to manipulate her enough for her to think about it, process it, and say, oh, okay, I'm going to agree to go. Right. Once she agreed to go, then the other two, and there are probably many more, so Anika probably will piggyback off of what I'm saying here. There's trauma and betrayal. So those are four things that happen in one time, right? So the agreement happened, but there was deception and manipulation to convince her enough to agree to it. Once she agreed, the embarrassment is where the trauma comes in that. So it links together with the trauma. And in the end, it's the betrayal, because now everybody sees it. Right. So then what do you do with that? You can't have a relationship. You'll be traumatized for years before she decides that she, one, trusts a young man again, or men in general, and then just trust. I don't even know if this was in a type of relationship, because it could have been just a sexual relationship. But even if it was, who is he to post something that she didn't agree to?
Right. She didn't agree to it. She didn't even know the camera was there. And so that's that deception you were talking about. And that's not the only time. If I can go further down the road, and it's actually in my city here in Durham, I remember a young lady that was going to the other prominent university, or one of the other prominent ones, Duke and everything. And she was a porn star and everything like that. But she actually got busted because one of her classmates saw that she was on certain things and was in that field and everything like that. So he basically outed her to the public without her consent and everything like that. So that was a major case that took place. I think it was right before the pandemic, or right around the time of the beginning of the pandemic. But yeah, she was basically outed out of that prominent university because she was, like many folks, she had to, and she was a white woman, she had to make some money in order to go to that expensive school. It's like going to Harvard. It's not a cheap school. So she opted to go that route to make some money in order to attend that prestigious university and everything. But I'm sure she was not expecting, one, her students to see her, and two, I know she wasn't expecting them to out her that way and everything like that.
Right. Exactly. So it's unfortunate that people don't think before they act. They just do, and don't understand the consequences until later. This is a consequence now that consequence could be the removal and the permanent expulsion of him.
Hello?
Yeah, you're freezing up there, Dr. Nam.
For example, he can lose, can go to prison. He can lose his freedom for doing something like that. So there are a lot of things here. And then the embarrassment to his family, okay? Because now they have to find an attorney, and this could be in, obviously it'll be in the paper. If it's not in the news or social media, it will be at some point. So there are so many factors that are getting ready to take place here with a choice that he made. So unfortunately, he's going to have to deal with the consequences. And since we're talking about forgiveness today, how could she forgive a person like that when you have been betrayed in such a manner, you know? So it comes with even all of that later on in life, because she forgives so she can move forward in life, you know? So my opening question to you both is, what is forgiveness? Do we know what it is? How do we define it? How would you define it in your own way? What is your definition of forgiveness?
Well, usually forgiveness involves, and definitely want to hear from Andrea and Nika's concept as well and everything like that. But usually it involves the notion of somebody having done a wrong to you, or you haven't done a wrong to them, and you have to be either forgiven or forgive folks as well. And one thing I will say is that sometimes it takes time. It doesn't always happen immediately and all along those lines, because I know that there have been cases where I have felt infringed upon, and maybe even the other party has felt infringed upon as well. And sometimes, I hate to say it, but sometimes you just got to step away, because I know that there were some intense situations I was in, and I just had to like step away from those situations. And even later, I've had encounters with those people, and we have agreed that it wasn't the right time or the right place, and it wasn't the good situation. And we've even admitted to some of our own faults, because nobody is 100% innocent in any situation. There's usually some blame on both sides and everything like that. So that's what sometimes you have to have time to reflect and time to be able to deal with that, because I know that there are some people that I have had to step away from, and there are people that probably have had to step away from me, and then after some time away, we've at least been able to be cordial to each other. Not saying that there's any possibility of it being a re-spark or anything like that, but we've at least got to that cordial spot of relationships. And that's what, to me, forgiveness is. And that can be on not just the personal side, but it can also be in family trauma and family drama, and it also can be in work environments, because we know that folks can also do harm to you in the work environment as well. And sometimes you got to have some time away from them in order to even be able to forgive them for what you feel is a trespass on you.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with that. Also, to be betrayed or trying to forgive someone, that follows you, and that pain that never goes away. It's just best to be able to forgive someone, so that way you can heal and you can feel better internally.
Mm-hmm.
To
I agree with that.
to be able to forgive them, you have to first accept what they've done, and that's you have to accept that. Do you, depending on what it is, like Mark said, it could take a long time. Sometimes people could just say, okay, that happened, that took place, you know what, I'm a bigger person here, and let it go. But bigger situations, you may not be able to do that, and it may take a lot of time to
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree, because here's the other thing, like you said, you got to accept what they done. So how do we look at that? What do we mean by accept what they done when you're talking about that? What does accept mean? Accept what they done. Maybe give our followers an example.
So if someone has done you wrong, to accept it, you have to say, you know what, this person may get to look at the dynamics. They may be mental illness. They may have alcohol problems. They may be not in their right mind. They may be going through things. And there's reasons why people do things. You know, you have to step back and say, what will cause this person to do this to me?
Yeah.
Were they not in their right mind? And then you accept it. Like, you know what? They have issues just like everybody else. You know,
Right.
I'm okay with that. Just please don't let it happen again, and speak to that person. If that person means enough to you to be able to move on with that. If not, then you'll never see that person again. Let it go and just move on.
Yeah. I know many of us, when we think of the dynamics of friendships, we actually have an investment in these friendships. You know, if they're longer than a year or 2 or 3, I would say when you get past the number 5 in the years, there is a different level of friendship there. You know, that is converting over to some, especially for females and males. You may see them as your brother, your sibling at this point. But when there's an ultimate betrayal, for example, you tell this person something that was very hurtful to you, even something that you are happy about, and you say, hey, don't share it with anyone. Then all of a sudden you hear it.
Right.
And you're hearing it from somebody you don't even have a relationship with, but you're hearing it. So then you have to think about, how do I deal with this person? Because again, the investment you have with this person, you are hoping that this person knows you, you know them. So you trust them. and then all of a sudden the trust is broken. So then the forgiveness may be sometimes hard to do, like you said. And then
Yes.
you think about, should I have a conversation with this person? Where is this going to go? Will they hear me what I'm saying, or will they invite others into this conversation that don't belong in there?
Right.
So it's just so many factors when you're thinking about forgiving a person when they betray you. The level of family. Now, Mark brought this up too about family and trauma. And our family members can do us so much harm. And then we don't forgive them. Why is that? Why don't we forgive them? But then sometimes it's a little bit easier for us to forgive that stranger. Why do we do that?
Yeah, well, that's a good point, and sometimes it's a matter of how close they are to us as family members. That a lot of times we expect more of them because they are part of our like core family and core identity. Because family is usually a part of your core identity, and all along those lines and everything. But the other thing is that how many times, and I'm sure that both of you ladies have experienced this at one time in your life or another. Even maybe even you, Dr. Diamond, when you were first with John or Dean, as I know him, and everything like that. But definitely, I'm sure there were family members that were like, this guy ain't no good for you, and told you all the reasons that y'all shouldn't have been together and everything like that. And I've also seen the opposite, where people will see the red flags and see the warning signs, but they don't want to quote unquote hurt your feelings, so they won't tell you what's going on, or they'll try to protect you or shield you from the hurt that they feel that you're heading to. And sometimes in my own mind, I just wish that they had told me, that's a train wreck that you're about ready to get ready to head into and everything. So don't like let me head into the train wreck, because train wreck can be very painful and everything like that. But sometimes they are thinking that they are doing better for you and all along those lines. And in that same space, if we're thinking about mental health, the other thing that I know happens in relationships, because I've been in a number of them, is that we all bring baggage. I don't care what anybody says. There's
Yep.
baggage we bring into our lives and into our relationships, but a lot of times we are not willing to leave the baggage at the door and everything. Because I know that I've been in relationships where people have kind of projected some of the past things that happened to them into our new relationship. So, like if they were abused or if they were accused of certain things, then they might try to make those same things toward me, even though I wasn't involved in the first situation and everything like that. But it's that notion of projection. And I think even author Anika brought that up on the last time that she was on the show, that sometimes people are willing to project negativities of things that they have been involved in, and all along those lines.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The projection part is can be deadly, because it's something going on with that person, and then they project out their pain, their hurt, everything that they're experiencing, you're going to be experiencing with them.
Right.
So then now the mature person have to say, who's receiving it now, because you're receiving these bullets and arrows, whatever you want to call it, you're
Right.
receiving it. So now you have to figure out, is this person intentionally hurting me, or is this something that they're going through right now? So this is where you have to be the adult, or I would say analyze.
Right.
Observe and analyze what you're dealing with. So, Nick, I agree with you about that when you said it's who you're dealing with, right? Because you have to look at that person and say, could they possibly be going through a mental health crisis?
Right.
You don't know. So you're the closest person to them, but then they're taking it out in you. Is it
Right.
fair? No, but it's who you're dealing with and
Right.
what kind of pass you're willing to give them. So I think it just depends on, again, who you're dealing with.
Right.
I do have a question for you, both of you. What are the benefits or detriment of forgiving? And for yourself, for others, for the community. So what is it? What are the benefits? Is there a benefit to forgiving, or is it more harmful?
I believe that it's beneficial because, for one, you'll get blessed for forgiving them, and then you're not holding it inside of you. To hold all that toxic waste. That's what I say is toxic waste. You hold it, you'll never forget it. You get hardened. You're losing out on your own blessings. Just forgive them, and just move on. And if you can't deal with them anymore, forgive them. So that way you'll be at peace. You'll get your blessings.
Mhm.
Just don't deal with them anymore. If it's a family member, try to stay away. There's family members that every time people get together in my family, sometimes it's like always something going on. Like, oh no, that's the crazy one. Oh no, well that one,
Yeah.
he'll go off on you. Like that's me. Like, okay, if you learn a person, then it's either you either A, stay away from them, or just learn how to deal with them. Just don't say anything, or just sit back from afar and just watch. If you want to be around a family or whatever, just sometimes it's just best to just,
Mm-hmm.
we have two eyes but only one mouth.
Yeah.
That's right.
So just watch.
Just
And
watch.
sometimes not forgiving people can be detrimental as well. And I think that's kind of what Arthur and Nico was referring to and everything. Because I know that I've had some friends that have been feeling that they were wronged or that they were hurt or that people are being sabotaging whatever they might be doing, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business deal, whether it's a whatever and everything. And they don't want to forgive those people and they want to hold them accountable in whatever ways they want to hold them accountable and everything, but then that adds to their own, like you said, Arthur and Nika, their own internal toxicity, and then they're sitting there uh, getting all this kind of like physical and mental pains that they are adding to themselves. Versus like sometimes you have to, you can forgive and step away. You don't have to forgive and like put them on a
Pedestal.
hate list for lack of a better term, or an enemy list, but you can forgive them and just realize that y'all might not see eye to eye and just let them do what they're going to do and you do what you're going to do. Because I mean, even in your work environments, whether it's a small
Right.
intimate office environment or whether it's a big corporate office, there are going to be folks that you don't get along with and folks that you cannot stand and everything, but you can at
Yeah.
least forgive whatever trespasses they may have had on you. But you can also know that you might stay opposed distance away from them as much as possible.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. I have a challenge question for you both, though. When you think about yourself, and we're not perfect beings and we make mistakes, do we forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we make?
That's the hardest thing to do, is to forgive yourself. That's just my opinion, because that's one of the hardest things to do, is to, like you just said, none of us are perfect. We all have our weaknesses. I know that there are things that I am not the best at and everything like that have even impacted relationships. I know that I can be a procrastinator on certain things, and that has impacted some work projects and things like that. I know that I can
Mhm.
also be a more of a, if I can use an old TV show and everything, I know that I can be more of an Oscar than a Felix, and that can impact relations as well. So you have to know what your weaknesses are and be willing to
Yeah.
deal with those weaknesses and everything like that, and forgive yourself and everything. But you can also hear people's critiques, and you can also try to make adjustments, because most people, if they are giving you critiques, it is done in a feeling of harmony and light. They're not trying to harm you. They're giving you a critique, and you can either choose to try to make corrections or not make corrections, because some things are so ingrained in our personality that you may not ever be able to change them as much as you would like.
I do,
Agreed.
I do agree with you on that, Mark. Um, it is hard to forgive yourself, but if you want to make changes and you're working on healing yourself, and you and you learn you, like for me, I've done things that may not even affected the other person as bad as I'm hard on me, as I, ask for forgiveness. Oh, if did I say something wrong, or did I say it the wrong way, or should I have not done that? We beat ourselves up because we're our worst critics,
Mm-hmm.
and you just ask, you just say, you know what, if they say something to you, then I don't want to be that person, so it won't happen again. But then it'll be on
Mhm.
your mind for a while, like, why did I do that? That was not nice, or something like that. They didn't appreciate that. So I think that I think pretty much, I probably could say that for quite a few people that will think like that.
Yeah.
Some people won't, though. They don't have empathy. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They don't. They don't. Some people do
so
not have empathy at all.
Yeah.
And they don't even have empathy for themselves. And that's a
Mhm.
hard part because they disconnected
Mhm.
somewhere. And when I am actually working with a lot of my clients, I'm learning from them too, and I always ask them an opening question of, who are you? Because we need to know knowledge of self first.
Right.
And then once you begin to have that relationship with yourself, then forgiveness can be a little bit easier to do when you make mistakes. But when you don't know yourself, you are going to be harder on yourself. You're going to have a difficult time forgiving yourself. And I start with that. Forgive you first for any mistake you ever made. And then when you look at others, then you may not be as critical either. Because I think at times we can be overly critical for forgiving somebody else. And it could be a minor infraction, but yet we are willing to put them in a dungeon forever.
Dr. Diamond, along those same rules and everything along those lines, and this goes for you and author Anika and everything, along those same lines, I was just wondering, sometimes I think that we want forgiveness for things that aren't even really that much of a concern to the people that we're asking for the forgiveness for. I think I've told you before on this show, and I've told other people on other shows that I've been part of, neither me or my younger brother are the biggest fans of hospitals and all along those lines, just because it's what hospitals entail, and they usually involve folks that are sick, and sometimes involve what we are all eventually going to do, which is die, and all along those lines and everything. So a lot of times we avoid hospitals and things like that, and sometimes you don't even go to the hospital at a time that people are in critical situations and everything. And a lot of times they want you to kind of like send your positivity, whatever that positivity is, any way that you can. Sometimes it's by being there in person with them, and sometimes it's just by letting them know that you are thinking about them, either indirectly or indirectly through friends and things like that. But oftentimes you find out that one, they didn't even realize that you weren't there if you didn't go there, and two, you're thinking that you got to be forgiven for not going there, and then you find out that they didn't even really it really wasn't that big of a deal to them, and all along those lines is what I guess I'm trying to say. Because like I said, I had a close friend, just saw him yesterday and everything, that had a stroke, and I never saw him when he was even in the coma and in the hospital, but we're still good friends and everything. But yeah, I was knocking myself on the head a couple of times, going like, I should go there, but I really don't like hospitals. I should go there, but I really don't like hospitals, and everything like that. And by the time he got out, we're still good friends, and we're still good friends in that sense. And I think I even brought it up to him one time. I was like, I really hated I didn't make it there, and he was like, I was in a coma. I wish to know that you came or not come, and everything like that. So sometimes I think that we are asking for forgiveness more than we need to, and all along those lines. And the same with my dad. I did go see Dad when he was having some heart issues and everything like that. I think I saw him 2 or 3 times. Probably could have gone more times and everything, but definitely Dad enjoyed my time when I was there with him, and probably would have liked to have seen me more and everything. But I also don't think that he was like feeling that I had to be forgiven for not attending as much as I would have liked to have attended, or as much as I went and everything like that. So I sometimes think that we put too much pressure on ourselves to forgive ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree.
I agree with that too. I also think, and I'm going to use a real live example as well, like you did, Mark.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I thought my dad was the meanest person in the world. I swear to you, I think all of his children, there's 11 of us. And to some degree, I think we all had a level of fear of this man. Okay. But then I had to, as I got older, it was just one day I went over to his house and he began to tell his story on how he became who he became in life. So then he became human to me. Okay. And then I was like, oh my God, I forgot that he's human.
Wow.
And when I got to know who he was and how come he grew up the way he grew up, there were many factors, his grandfather, who came from Trinidad, religious person and very tough. Okay. So I had to understand that. And then he grew up having to go to church all the time. And then his mother, who was very much a person that did not take any nonsense from anyone.
Right.
So being in the streets of Harlem, you know that you have to be tough out there. So he had to learn to be tough. So in the end, it was a lot of building a character of a person that became rough around the edges, and that's all he knew what to do. He didn't know that you had to have a softer side to you, especially when you have children. So he didn't know. So then, as again, I began to see him as a human being when he started telling me his story. So then I said, okay, so all the things he's ever done and the transgressions and everything, I had to forgive and say, this is a person just like me that made mistakes in his life. And there is where my forgiveness came in for him, because I have seen him do things that I didn't like. But then who am I now to judge who he was as a person, because he's not with us anymore? But I'm glad I forgave him before he left this earth, because you have to forgive sometime because you don't know people's story. And that's what I'm getting to, is that learn the person before we be overly critical. So this is where I agree with you, Mark, about when you're overly critical on a person. And Anika, this is where I agree with you. You can lose your blessing there. And that could be building a new relationship, understanding the person more, because if you close minded, you won't understand them. Right. And that's where forgiveness came in for me at. So I wanted to really use that as a true example. And I hope this helps somebody else if you have a similar experience with your parents. Right. Understand them by finding out who they really are.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you said that, because I was watching the basketball game yesterday, which I sometimes will watch some of the sporting contestants and everything. And it was one of the players, I think it was one of the Houston Rockets players, who was from New Zealand. And that's really what they said, was that he had that same situation that you did, because I think he was one of like 16 kids or something like that. So he had to grow up tough. So they were like, if you think that this game and these fouls are meaning anything to him in this game, this doesn't mean anything to him. He's going out there wrestling with pigs and dealing with those 16 siblings or 15 siblings or something like that. So it's that notion of, and I'm sure he had to forgive some of the folks in his family, because I mean, 16, that's a lot. And I'm sure that there are all kinds of dynamics within that, because it's 16 folks. So some of the people he's probably very close to, and might be some that are the same age, and some of them he's probably not as close to, and everything like that. And, you know, sometimes forgiveness is also interesting in the sense of, you have to understand why people are doing what they do. Because I know even in my own family, I had a uncle who has since passed, but for a long time, a lot of the family members did not forgive him, because he seemed like he took one of the sisters, meaning one of mom's sisters, one of my aunts, away from the family, and was kind of more of a strict kind of environment and everything like that. Because that's even the way he raised his children. And some of us that came from a more liberal environment were going like, what's up with this? Why's he got to be super strict and all along those lines? And at some point we realized that, you know, there was some things that we might not agree to. Because I remember one time, I think mom gave the girls, because it was mostly girls, I think it was 5 girls and 1 boy, if I'm remembering correctly. I could do the math, but I think it's 6, if I remember correctly, of those particular cousin sets. And mom gave, I think, all the older girls, it might have been all the girls, that book, Our Body, Ourselves, because she wanted them to understand what you ladies were going through. And because he was so strict, he was like not really taking offense at that book and her giving that book, but she was just trying to give them a lesson as to what was going on with their bodies, so they could be prepared for what happened later in their lives. Because all of them got pregnant, all of them have kids, and in some cases they have grandkids now and everything. But she wanted them to be understanding. But I think he was coming from that strict religious standpoint of, you know, I'm the man in the house. I'm the only one who's supposed to be telling these lessons and everything like that. And I don't need no book to pass this knowledge on, even though it was a good book. And I think it helped those young ladies that are cousins of mine in their life in the long run, even though, like I said, they've all had children of their own. And I think in most, well, at least in a few cases, grandkids now.
Yeah. I agree with that. I understand that type of both of your stories. We all are family members and parents. If you read my book, then you know my mother. I know my niece asked me a couple of days ago after she read the book, and she says, "How do you feel about Nana? Like, how did you overcome everything that you went through, and just still continue to love Nana, which is my mother?" And I said, when you have children, they're not coming out with instructions. So you do the best you can as being a parent. So I'm not going to hold that against her, because she wasn't taught the proper way, because what's the proper way? You know,
Mm-hmm.
thing we know as raising kids is give them the tools and the fundamentals of life. But
Right.
what does that consist of? The best possible tools and fundamentals that you already know of. That's it. You can't teach something that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
And
along
yet,
the same lines, and I think it comes up in your book. I haven't got the book yet, but I do want to get a copy, and I got to put it on
me
the
too.
website for Pod TV because we have a bookstore. So I'll be sure to add it to the bookstore because the bookstore is I'm in control of the bookstore, so I can pick what books I want to put on it. So author
Thank
Anika, I'll definitely add your book to our bookstore and all along those lines. But
thank you,
one
Mark.
of the things I oftentimes hear people talk about, and I don't know the answer because I've not been in that particular situation, I've been in some other trying situations and everything like that. But one thing when it comes to forgiveness that people are oftentimes asking is, how can you forgive when you know that the other party, and it's kind of what you were alluding to, Dr. Diamond, know the other party is wrong? Because I know, and I think it's featured in your book, correct me if I'm wrong and everything, but even in those abusive situations, a lot of times the parents and the people know that they are in the middle of that situation, but they don't want to break the dynamics. They don't want to upset the dynamics. So they oftentimes are afraid to speak out, to go to the law, to do other things, even though they know that it is wrong when a child is being abused, for lack of a better term, and everything like that. So I just wondered, what do you say about forgiveness in those situations? Because that's one of the things that I've oftentimes, that's one of those ones that you sit there and going like, and I know a lot of times people think about child abuse or other kinds of abuses that go on with us in our churches and our family, and they're going like, now that's the one thing I can't forgive is somebody
Yes,
abusing a child or abusing an animal and everything like that. But I just wondered, how
yes,
do you think people can get past that? Because usually that's like most people have a um something that is like their drop dead kind of thing that they will not ever forgive. We all have things that
right.
we consider like our extremes that we can never forgive and everything. And usually it involves the treatment of kids and animals
And elderly,
and
the elderly
elders.
too.
the elderly. Yeah.
Right.
The elderly as well. That is a lifetime work in
Right.
progress. But that don't, it's just not something that you could just say okay, because they have problems or issues. They didn't just get there today.
Right.
So it's a lot when the children are involved. The children are involved. You don't just leave your kids with just anyone, but anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to again, probably more than just one person that's at fault.
Right.
And how do you forgive them as well? Like you put
Right.
that person in harm, you put that child or that elderly person in harm's way when you knew something was wrong with that person. But if you don't know, then you it's like I said, you have to sit back and say, what happened? Like what why where did this come about? Like you didn't just turn this way like yesterday or today. So probably it's some issues that you probably never saw. Things probably never came out. And again, that's a long time process of trying to get over that. But I don't know, because if when it's your child, you might have you might have to do some real praying with me, because
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
some
sometimes prayer is the answer. It's definitely prayer and
feel
some
and
inner work and all that. Sometimes
yeah,
that's what you got to do in that sense. And the other thing is that sometimes you can push people to the brink of doing things that they regret doing and everything like that. Because I know that I have probably blurted out some words that I wish that I could have taken back, including some words in relationships and everything like that. But sometimes in that heat of the moment or in those moments, you might even make what some people identify as threats or things along those lines, even though that's not what you intended and everything like that.
right.
Mm-hmm. It's
Because
true.
when you do harm and try when you do things to children, you're destroying that child. So that's a whole
Yep.
life you're taking. You're just taking that child's life, mental,
Yeah.
PTSD, all that stuff plays a part. And it's just so unfair when you do that to a child, because it's just not right.
I had to wrap up something with somebody else really quickly. That's what I was telling you.
But you know
It's so
what?
good.
I agree with that. That with
I
children,
will be on top of your show the whole time. I've just had to.
Uh,
they're
Yeah, you
very
said if
much.
you bounce off, I've got to be ready to go on. I know that.
Oh, okay.
he just
With children, their children are very innocent, and like you were saying, they're coming into this world not knowing what's going on,
right.
and a lot of people are so ignorant that they don't understand that they're destroying them. Let's just even use something similar to or example of just colorism, right? Colorism is some serious damage that family members actually inflict on children because they're innocent.
Right.
And when you have one that may be browner than the other,
Right.
one may be darker than the other, you have an array of brown children. Why don't you love them equally instead of pinning them against each other? Right. But that is really a colonial way of thinking. So when you think about classism, again, you got to go back to colorism. That was never amongst us. It was thrown into those that were enslaved before us. But the problem is we continue that behavior. And we still do it. And sometimes it's done subconsciously. And then consciously, many of us will say, no, color is not a factor and it shouldn't be.
Right.
But the damage is done when you have destroyed especially little girls.
Right.
Because little girls, we were kids once. You and I were kids once. So you look at yourself in the mirror every day. Mm-hmm. And you may make that comparison and say, if lighter is righter, why can't I be like that then? Right. Why can't I be light enough so I, am treated better? Because if I'm too brown or I'm going more on the darker side, then I'm going to be treated badly, know. And it's a real thing because that was a part of my dissertation was about intra-racial discrimination amongst Black women. Right. And it's very prevalent amongst us. And when I think about community forgiveness, that's something that I think we really, really need to work at as Black women. We have a problem. And a lot of our problem stems from colorism, classism, just basic jealousy.
Right.
It is a problem. And then it's hard to forgive another person when they are malicious because they're hurting. Yes. And this is where the projection come in at when you talked about projecting. Yes. So when I think about a community as a whole, as Black women, we got a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. Some of us is doing good jobs and getting it together and having a sisterhood and the things are working, whatever these women are doing.
Right.
But a lot of us fall short because we are disrespecting other Black women for what exactly?
For no reason.
Right.
Because we need to help one another fix each other's crown and lift each other up. Like you said a couple of weeks ago, you said you want to reach back and grab and pull up the sisters. And that's what we need to do more of.
Yeah.
Society already paints this picture. Like even when you see them on social media platforms and you see the models and the makeup and they just want to be like the others. They don't really want to look like us, and shine our color,
yes,
put some shine to it. But instead they want to go to the other shade, and it's not right.
It's not right. It's also self-hate. And then they are willing to teach their children to hate themselves.
Right.
And that is unforgivable to me because that is a conscious, deliberate act to teach the child to dislike who they look like, what they look like, so they can damage who they are. Right. And psychologically, I look at how self-esteem can be torn down. Unfortunately, there are a lot of celebrities, as well as those that are not celebrities, have destroyed themselves based on the self-esteem. And usually the self-esteem is the problem from the other person. And they're afflicting it on you because that's their way of controlling or actually disconnecting it from themselves and giving it to you. And then you receive it. And then once you receive it, you're like, oh, maybe they are right. Maybe the way I look, I don't like the way I look. Maybe I am ugly and they're pointing it out to me. So now I need to fix how I look. So you have people really destroying their bodies and their health for something that they want to keep up with. It's just awful. It's an awful thing. And we need to figure out where our value is. And
Right.
that's when I go back to, have you ever forgiven yourself for decisions that you make? Even what you have said to others. Have you forgiven yourself yet? It starts with you. Once you start with yourself, then forgiveness can actually happen. None of us are perfect, but we have to take the time out and understand why we forgive.
Right.
Forgiving, you do not have to walk up to a person and say to them, I forgive you for what you did to me. You actually can say that to yourself.
To
I
yourself.
actually forgive A, B, and C, because they may not even know what they're doing.
Right. Right. And then it comes in on how you treat them the next time you see that person. I know some people at work, they did some awful things that I never ever thought that I would just ever even be able to speak or talk to them again. And I had to accept what they did, forgive
Mm-hmm.
it. I prayed about it and I let it go. To this day, you won't even know that there was ever any issue. You have to
Yeah.
be able to let it go. You have to be able to let it go and not continue to relive it. If you keep, you'll never forget what they did. You just have to forgive what they did. You'll never
Yeah.
you'll just treat people accordingly, because everybody has to be treated differently, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's not the same. So everybody can't get what the next person or the last person got.
Yeah.
It's according to you. How are you? So that's how
Right.
you treat it, and that way it's fair.
Mm-hmm. I can say, though, that I know I have not forgiven a lot of people in my life, because there's certain things you just can't forgive. And for me, there are certain values and standards that I have. So my standards is, I'm I'm a loyal person to you. And once I become loyal to you, I'm loyal to a default. But
Right.
when you do something that totally betrays me, and I have given you multiple chances and you keep doing it, then I have to cut you out of my life. There's no
Absolutely.
forgiving after this, because I have given you multiple chances and you continue to harm me, hurt me. And that's a psychological thing when people begin to hurt you in that manner. And
Right.
then I disconnect totally, because now I'm going to defend myself
You have to
and
protect you.
not allow you to keep
Mhm.
coming into my space and hurting me.
Right.
So I can tell you that I have not forgiven a lot of different people for what they have done to me. But can I go in the same room with the person? Of course, but I don't have to speak to you. I owe you nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We don't necessarily owe each other anything but common courtesy and respect. I can
Right.
be in the same exact room with you. Please respect me, though, because I'm going to respect you. But
Right.
once you come out and you disrespect me, be prepared for what I'm going to unleash. But it's you that's causing it. So
Right.
I think people put on a performance, and then when you show up to act on the performance, they don't like it.
Right. Of course not.
Right. And that's where I have a problem with some people. And therefore, my forgiveness, I'm not going to give you. I'm not. But what I am going to do is, like you said, accept who they are,
Yes.
and accept the fact that I can't forgive you based on a series of things, because I allowed myself to forgive. And then I had to walk away by saying, I'm done.
So can I ask you a question, Dr. Diamond? If
Mm-hmm.
you don't forgive a person, like, to me, I felt like if you don't forgive that person, you can't be in the same area with that person. You can forgive them because
Yeah.
you've already accepted what they've done.
Yeah.
However, no, you don't have to engage with them. You don't have to
No.
interact with them. You don't even have to feed them if they're hungry. That's on you.
Right.
However, if you're in the same presence, I believe that you've you've already started working towards, or if not, forgiveness. Because if I can't forgive you, I cannot be in your presence, because I can't tell you what I'm gonna do to you,
Mm-hmm.
or what I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna say to you. That's just the
Right.
way I take things. So I feel like you probably deep down or started forgiving, but you just never forgotten.
I can say fair somewhat, but I think it's more of tolerance. I learned how to tolerate certain people because I accept that this is who they are. So I can go into another room with you because I can tolerate maybe your ignorant behavior because that's what you constantly display. So that's where I'm at with the tolerance of it. And then sometimes you can't help being in that particular room because you may be in the same situation that they're in. Same could be organization, a meeting, or whatever it is. So it is the tolerance that I'm dealing with now. Now I'm tolerating you because I can't avoid you because we're in the same place at the same time. So to keep my peace, though, there's nothing to discuss.
Right.
So I get where you're going with that, but I think we do build up a level of tolerance when we walk into the same place with the person, right? So there's no more that I can give to this relationship.
Right.
Okay. No more. But when someone new comes into my life, I have to also feel who you are, right? If you're open and receptive, and I'm receptive to you, again, we are beings that are spiritual. So we interact and intertwine through energy. If your energy is so light and light is mine, I am going to interact with you with no question. But I will question it if my spirit does not blend with yours at all. So that I know that if we already start out at the gate where I can't interact with you spiritually, then there will never be forgiveness and tolerance and none of those things because our energy is already kicking off wrong.
Right. And you already know to keep your distance.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
On that.
Yes. So, that is what I'm looking at as far as
Hey, Dr. Diamond, just really quickly, do you think that forgiveness is something, this is for you, author Anika, as well, do we teach enough about forgiveness? Because I'm sitting here watching these kids, and I know that sometimes they have to forgive the folks that might have infringed on them, whether it's like stepping on their shoes or whether it's grabbing their food or doing stuff like that. So I just wondering, do you think that forgiveness is something that we do a good job of teaching kids about?
He's a little muffled for me.
You're a little muffled. So can you
hold
say
on
it again?
Yeah. I was saying, do you think we do a good job of teaching forgiveness to our kids? Do you think
teaching
about forgiveness, and do you think that's something that we need to do a better job of in terms of teaching it in the grade schools?
I think that we do need to teach more of it in grade school, but this generation is different from our generation because they don't know even what pressure is. They don't know even how to accept rejection. They don't understand any of that. So to teach them forgiveness, that's tough because this generation is a little different. They don't accept or perceive things different like the way we did and had to. But I do agree. I will say I do go with teaching them more as far as forgiveness, as well as understanding when something goes wrong, how to channel your energy. They're not taught that. They're not taught when somebody says no to you that it's okay that they said no. It doesn't mean you hate them or to hate them or they hate you or dislike you. Understand that no means no. Their space is their space. Accept them for respect their decision for not wanting you around them or not wanting to be bothered, or it doesn't mean that you hate them or they hate you. At this moment, everybody's entitled to a bad day, so they have to learn the difference and they don't even know how to channel that to say, they just automatically break down and cry and have, tantrums. You
I
know,
do agree. This generation is different. The biggest thing for them, or the word that I'm going to share with everyone, is rejection. It is hard for people, especially this generation, to be rejected. And when they're rejected by another person, they
right,
totally see them as an enemy straight off. You know, it's like they rejected me, they disrespected me, but don't know why. It could be that your aura or your spirit is not what they want to interact with. So it's not that they don't like you, they just probably don't connect with you at that moment. And
right,
maybe later down the line, as you mature more, then the interaction could possibly happen. But the rejection piece is unforgivable for them. Like they can't forgive. And this is where I think gang activity happens, when one gang don't like the other gang because of what are you really fighting about? What are you really killing another person about? Did they do something? Was the transgression so bad that you had to eliminate them off of the earth
for life, forever.
forever? You can't get that back once that person is gone, and then you go to prison for it. So now, what did you possibly learn from that? That because this person rejected you or they disrespected you. Listen, a lot of the times we are disrespected. We are, but it's how you handle the disrespect. Example, where I was working, this person called me a B every single day. And you know, Anika, you would know what that's like when you work in the penal system. Folks
Right.
can call you names, right?
Yes.
Every day until I dropped this statement. You don't like women. That's all I said.
Yes.
Next thing I know, it was processed, but it also stung like bees.
Yes.
So the next day, it was, may I speak with you? I was shocked. I said, may I? This is unbelievable. So you do have common courtesy and respect.
And
But the
respect.
response was, you hurt me when you said that. I said, wow. I said, I'm actually amazed by what you just said. I said, but I'm going to teach you something. From brother to sister, I'm going to teach you something. When you disrespect me, you allow other races to disrespect me. So once you call me outside of my name, you allow for Caucasian people to do it, Asian people to do it. I say, have you ever thought about it in that way? No, I haven't. I said, do you have a mother? Yes. I said, a grandmother? Yes. An aunt? Sisters? Daughter? Yes. Okay. So when you call me outside of my name, you just said it's okay for them to do it. So don't jump on them when they do call me outside of my name, because you started it.
Right.
Right. So that's when it sunk in. And then he asked me to forgive him. And I said, sure. And I said that because he needed the forgiveness, because it hurt him to his core. But it was the fact is what I said and how I walked off. You don't like women. That's all I said. Blank statement. But you needed to think about that because you were disrespecting me. And because I have a hard exterior, I didn't allow it to bother me. But if I was a little softer, you could have made me cry every day, or I could have killed myself.
Right. Right. Right.
Hey,
Right?
Dr. Diamond and also Anika, you bring up an interesting question since we're talking about forgiveness. Are there certain situations that we don't have to forgive and everything? Because I'm thinking like you probably wouldn't forgive the slave masters back in the day, and I don't really want to
No,
forgive. I really don't want to forgive Donald Trump, and there are even like
no.
some Uncle Tom types that I don't want to forgive either as well. So, what is our thought? Are there people that have been very against us that we don't have to forgive because they are against what we're about?
Woo, Mark. That is a great question. That is actually one of our roundtable questions. So you went right into it. Wonderful.
Wow.
No, I cannot forgive people that killed us for sport. No, I can't.
Right.
And yes, these people are dead and gone, but some of their generation of people are here. And some of them have those same mindset, i.e. Donald Trump, i.e. Elon Musk, i.e. a lot of the people that are Republicans. that still carry that sense of we are 3/5 of a person. I
Right.
don't know if y'all seen this particular senator. He's in Florida, I believe, or I could be talking about Georgia. I know Roland Martin showed it. This idiot, and he is an idiot, came on social media and said 3/5 of a person does not mean what y'all think it means. I'm sorry. 3/5 of a person, he was talking about how we weren't considered to be property. Oh, sir, yes. We were
Oh,
considered to be cattle, property, like a furniture. But what these white folks are trying to do is gaslight us. Are you crazy?
right.
So no, I can't forgive that. I can't forgive the damage that it has caused. I can't forgive what you all have done to Rosewood, Tulsa.
Right.
No, I can't. I can't forgive that. I can't forgive that you burned people on a tree and hung them.
Right.
And I can't forgive what you did to Emmett Till. No. No, I can't. That was a child.
Right.
And you killed him like he did so much damage, and then in the end come to find out she lied. Of course she did.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I can't forgive those things, Mark. I really can't. It takes a lot for me to forgive the transgressions against our our descendants who did nothing wrong. I can't forgive that the Europeans human trafficked these Black Africans over here. No, I can't forgive that. No, I can't. I'm sorry.
Right. I do agree. I do agree as well with Dr. Diamond. There is certain things that you just cannot forgive, and you'll never forget it. And that's part of what I said. You just don't keep reliving it and keep going through it. It's something that's there, but it's just not always in the forefront. You know how you feel about it. You know that you can't forgive it, but again, it's not you're not allowing that to be interacting with your mental health as well.
Yeah.
So you still putting it in the back. You won't forgive it. If it comes up, then you know how you feel about it, but it's only when it comes up. Is it there all the time? No. Is it constantly sitting in your mind? No.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we don't forgive certain things, we still just don't live it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to actually probably learn how to even put it to the back if you're not going to be able to forgive it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
I think, Mark, that was an excellent question. I'm hoping that, our followers that have joined us on the couch, those that are looking, and then later on, they may be processing that same question that you asked, is that, what does that look like? What's unforgivable? Yeah, there are certain things that are totally unforgivable, and you can't go back and forgive that. And there are personal things that we don't forgive right away either, or don't forgive at all. So don't beat yourself up about it, because guess what? You're human just like the other person, but sometimes that unforgiveness that you don't give saves your sanity, saves your peace, save everything about you, because you may be bringing in someone in your life that don't belong there.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, Dr. Diamond, there's certain things that you can't forgive, and I think even author Anika referred to it. Most people cannot forgive the abuse of kids, can't forgive the abuse of animals, no matter what the animal is, and everything, or even forgive, like we said earlier, the abuse of elderly, because we definitely have more and more elderly citizens, and the elderly population is growing, and there are a lot of people that are abusing the elderly, including that person that's in the White House who ain't that far from elderly himself. Matter of fact, he would be considered elderly by many, but definitely as is something that is hard to forgive, the abuse of those kind of situations.
Yes, it is very hard to forgive. That is. So I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, and this is where we're gonna do the education piece before we end our show today. And this is really going into discussing mental health, right? Because this is Mental Health Month awareness. And I want to make sure we delve in to this topic on the couch, because our mental health, and I'm really focusing on the Black and Brown community, because we see mental health as, or even back then, and then we're going to move forward. From the past, it was considered to be taboo to talk about anything that happened in your home outside of your home. Right? We would never seek therapy, but we would only go to the church. But when we went to the church, how did that play a role for a lot of us? Because sometimes going to the church, you're dealing with some people that are very judgmental, and these are your pastors or your clergy. And now you're going to these people thinking that they're going to help you, but they tend to be more judgmental. So they're doing or adding more to your mental health. So that's more damage to you versus it helping you. So I wanted to give some knowledge today about the professionals of, the people that you're dealing with in mental health. So each one of these professionals are totally different. So I wanted to tell you what a mental health counselor is, what a psychiatrist is, psychologist, and also a social worker. Each one of these different professions do something different. So for mental health counselors, they usually this applies to a person who have received a master's degree from an approved university and is licensed to provide psychotherapy. Titles vary by region, but they are usually denoted by acronyms such as LMHC or LPC. So a mental health counselor is a person, again, that is more psychotherapy. So it's psychotherapy where you're getting education about what may be bothering you. Okay. They're going to walk you step by step on how to get through certain behaviors, understanding why do you do this. For example, if you're going through depression, they're going to teach you what depression is and how to incorporate tools to help you get through it. As you all know, I'm a licensed associate marriage and family therapist. So that is what I do. I am a person that's going to give you the tools, but I'm going to use your strength, your knowledge, and I'm going to teach you to use what you have to help you grow and heal as a person. A psychologist. Now, a psychologist, they have a doctoral degree in this field of psychology. They may or may not also be licensed as a psychotherapist, but a psychologist often perform additional services. What does that mean? They do assessments. So they may bring you in and do an assessment on you and say, you know what, you're saying you're depressed. I want you to take this test to see if you are truly depressed as you're saying that you are. And some psychologists, when they do this, they don't always are able to give you medication. And that's where the psychiatrists come into play. The psychiatrist also does give you the medication. They also give you the mental health treatment that you need. Sometimes they put you in the hospital, depending on what you're going through. So if you're going through a crisis, they can say, hey, I think you need to go in, to the hospital and understand what you're going through. Now, a social worker, very different. They also carry a master's degree in training in psychotherapy and other services. Social workers have additional training in areas such as case management. And they do a lot of case managing. They also view therapy a little bit differently as well. Some of them are clinical social workers. However, their methodologies are a lot different than what I would use. Okay. When I went to school, I strictly went to school for therapy. They later on go back and get those clinical interventions that I went to school for from the gate. So it's, each one of these professional entities can be very helpful to you. It's just who you're going to go to and what you're seeking and what type of healing you're seeking. I will never tell you do not incorporate your religious beliefs, because you can. Make sure you marry the two together and they work together for your healing process. If they're not doing what it's supposed to do, then guess what? You can fire both. You can fire your mental health therapist and you can fire your clergy if they're not doing what they're supposed to do to help you. If they are hindering your healing, please get rid of them because they're only adding to what you're going through. Could be anxiety, depression, any one of those. Your trauma, re-traumatizing you. Is it possibly re-traumatized? Of course it is. You can also have triggers. Know your triggers. And I say that because each one of us probably have been through different forms of trauma. We all have. Neighborhoods, homes. So let's say environmental influences. That could have been traumatizing to you. Your community, traumatizing. Okay. My first level of trauma exposure, when I was 4 years old, but then I'm going to take it to when the community trauma. My brother and I had just moved in with my grandmother and my aunt. And I will never forget this as long as I live. I was 12 years old. You know, a guy got shot in his head and he was the wrong person. He was laying in the gutter. Now, the police department was 2 blocks away. They did not come to our neighborhood until my aunt called and said, there's an officer laying in the street. But think about the 12-year-old that was exposed to this person being shot. All I saw him doing was staggering and he was holding his face and then he collapsed. And what was bad about it is you could smell his blood. And I lived on the 3rd floor, but you could smell it. Mm-hmm. That was a trauma that I will never forget, ever. And he was an innocent bystander. And that was the year or the years of the crack era. So crack era was pretty tough. You know, growing up in that era, you are exposed to a lot of things, but I definitely was exposed. And I tell you that trauma was something I carry. And the other trauma is the loss of a parent. When you lose a parent at a young age, you don't know how to grieve properly. So I learned how to grieve properly as I started going to school and understanding that therapy is okay for us and that we can utilize it. And that's how we get through things. So Anika, I know you've been through your own trauma. And do you think writing your book helped you relieve some of the trauma that you have experienced in your life?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it did. I was able to write it and then read it. It still hurts me for certain things. It still makes me emotional, but it also is a great healing. And then actually, now that I'm at this age, you know, that's coming from a kid to a young lady's sense of writing and memories. I believe, you know, over time, I'm able to heal from it and accept it. But it's stuff that you just never forget, you know.
You don't. Yeah, you just don't forget it, but you learn, like you said, to get through it and how to live with it. Right. So this is for our listeners today, how to self-regulate and then learn and develop coping skills. Journaling is a big one that I always promote. Journal. Next thing you know, like Anika, she developed a book and she utilized that to help the next person or persons, because it is very important that she's reaching someone, even if it's one person. She reached someone and they're going to make a change in their life and know that it's okay to do it because she gave the example. And she's a living example that you can take that same information that you journaled about and use it to help someone else, but also to go back. Like she said, she went back and she read it. It can be hurtful and painful, but it did something where now you see this woman in front of you standing up and moving and knowing that she can heal from her past, that this is not her story, that the trauma is her story. It's not. She disconnected from the trauma by allowing her power to step forward. And I would like everyone to understand that you can do that. You can heal and stand up and keep going in life because it is possible. Right. Practicing mindfulness, and that is just grounding yourself in your realities, right? So grounding yourself can be simply is, like Anika said earlier, accept when you accept the person, accept what they do or who they are, you're grounding yourself at that point. So now you're like, all right, I accept who they are. Now, am I going to forgive them for who they are? Yeah, depending on who you're dealing with. Like she said, you're not going to forgive everybody, but it depends on who you're forgiving. So be mindful of you too. Understand who you are, where you're coming from, and what you're looking at and how you're looking at yourself. So be very grounded and mindful. Spirituality, make sure you practice that. If you're a spiritual person, you don't have to step into somebody's church to be spiritual. You already was born that way. God made you that way. So just connect with your spirituality, and that's you can talk to God every day. That's you doing that one-on-one, and that's it. And this is how you can get through it. Smiling exercises. This was one that I was curious about on this list. But smiling can impact you as the person internally, because you're smiling and you're showing a level of happiness with yourself. And sometimes your smile can be contagious to another person. So you may also help them feel better about themselves by doing that. A pet, interacting with a pet, if you have a pet at home, that pet can be such a lifesaver for you. So connecting with a pet. And the what if exercise. What if this goes wrong? No, think about what if this goes right. Start thinking about the what ifs in a positive way versus the opposite way. And gratitude exercise, think about the things that you're grateful for. What am I grateful about? Well, start with the fact that you're living and breathing, that you're getting up every day, and be grateful that God gave you another day on this earth, and you're breathing his air, everything that's going on around you. You're seeing the flowers outside, the trees. You're able to walk out of your door.
Right.
And you have a home, and you're not homeless. So think about all of those things that you're grateful for, and take one day at a time. Healing is a process. Right. You're not going to get up every day and just say, I'm healed. No, it is a journey. And Anika, I want you to tell them before we leave today about your book and where to get it and how you use that also for your healing. So where can they get your book?
Oh, okay. God's Grace in the Shadow of Love. You can get it on Amazon. It's by myself. I also want to piggyback one thing real quick.
Yes, absolutely.
Grateful for, just be grateful for the small things. Like people, it really came to light with COVID. I lost my sense of smell and my sense of taste. And I never imagined not having it, because I never thought that I can lose it. So it's when I lost it, I said, oh, how grateful I am when I'm gonna get this back. Like I knew I knew it would come back. I mean, it took like 8 or 9 months before I was able to smell and taste again. And I still to this day don't even smell the way that I used to smell. The sense of the keen smells. I don't have that. But it's such a blessing to be able to just wake up in the morning and just be able to smell things and taste. Be thankful and grateful for all of that. When you're grateful and thankful for the small things, you'll learn how to overcome the smaller things. Because that's big. To be able to smell, to be able to see, to be able to feel, those are big things. But we take so much for granted. And we lose our sight and faith and acceptance that what he's given us, the knowledge of knowing that if you didn't have it, you would really be upset. You would have something to complain about. You would have something to be, distasteful about. But it is so good to have. Yes.
Yeah. I agree. I pretty much I like what you just said, but absolutely keep going. So the book you can all get on Amazon.
Yes, you can get the book on Amazon. God's Grace in the Shadow of Love. I'm also working on a workshop, and I'd like to talk to you later about that too, Dr. Diamond, that I want to do for men and women. And it's basically learning how to forgive. I was actually working on it this morning, learning how to forgive and rebuild your relationship.
Yeah.
So I want to do this event. I don't want to say a women's empowerment because I need men to also hear how women feel, just like women need to know how men feel when they're hurt or broken. Because women
Right.
and they're hurt and they're broken. It's not just women, it's also men too. They get hurt and they're broken, um, from relationships or from friendships or family ships. All that stuff can hurt someone, and they just sometimes don't know how to channel it or speak about it to heal from it.
So that sounds like a winner for me. Working on this workshop with you, I would love to do that. I also would like to make an announcement as well that Candid Conversations will be returning in May. So the latter part of May going into early June. Now, Candid Conversations is my women's group that I do have. It is for African American women and other women that identify as color. And the purpose of this is also to build sisterhood. The groups are not large. The first group, or the first time I opened this group up, I had about maybe 8 to 12 members and sometimes more, but I'm going to cut it to at least 8 to 10 people per group. And the purpose of this group is to develop a level of healing but connection with another woman that can help you through the healing process. So everybody is like walking together at a ground, or the basis or the foundation will be the beginning of who am I and what am I bringing to this group. This group will begin, like I said, probably the last Wednesday. I'm looking at Wednesdays in the middle of the week because that's my availability. And possibly I'll be picking another day. And this group will happen in Zoom and also in person.
Can
And
you
it's
tell me
in,
I'm sorry, Doctor.
yes,
What's the name of it again?
it's called Candid Conversations.
Okay.
And it's exactly what it is. It's candid. It is you to be real and open and talk about who you are, what you would like to do with this group. Also being open to the other woman in the group. If you feel like a person is hiding, and I say that because you do have people that are hiding, right? And they hide behind others because they can sit and listen to others, but they don't want to express. Now, we're not forcing you, or I'm not forcing you to come out and say, day 3, you have, or group 3, you have to be like, oh, well, I need to, speak and say these things. However, if the other person, say I pair you up with the person and you're introducing that person and you're saying, okay, I'll give you an example. I'm introducing Anika to the group. And I said, Anika is an author. She loves this color, this. I'm giving you bits and pieces about her. Now you should be able to start building also from that, because I'm the person that introduced you to the group. So now you should be ready to start speaking at some point. So that way, now just it's not you introducing yourself. The other person did, because you have given them some level of trust that they're going to introduce you and you're going to introduce them. And then that's where your sisterhood start beginning to build, because you did the one-on-one. And then you begin to open yourself up to the other women. This is why I don't want the groups to be large, because large groups hinder people from opening up, because then the cohesion doesn't happen and then there's fear,
Right.
and I don't want to do that. But Candid Conversations is what it is. It's definitely about being candid and open, not open with other people, but open with yourself and telling yourself the truth. Why am I here? Why do I want to be a part of this group? What do I want to learn from it? Like you, I don't want it to just be empowerment. I want it to be you standing in your own power.
Right.
That's the goal here,
Right.
So that's what Candid Conversations is about. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for me to bring it back. So I'll be bringing it back, and I'll be making a formal announcement on our page. So please go to On the Couch. It will be connected to On the Couch. And then there you can find Candid Conversations. And there is a page for Candid Conversations as well. And you will find it on my personal page. I will share it. And then I will begin to do interviews to come into the group, because I just don't want to let anybody in, because what will happen is that the dynamics will shift if people have some serious issues. And I don't want to let people in who will harm another woman in the group. We can't do that.
Right.
Because that wouldn't be healthy. But I just wanted to put that out there for everyone, that are following us. So I hope that you all will, send me email, inbox me if you're interested, and I will definitely do a formal interview with you and then get you in. And there may be 2 different groups that I'll be running, but it'll be probably 2 different days. So as I go along. And then really, we're here now at the end of our show. I think this show was very forthcoming. I learned a lot myself about forgiveness. And I think it's important that when you are ready to forgive, understand what it is first and start with yourself. Once you start with yourself, then it may be a little easier to forgive. Also, you don't have to forgive everybody. You don't have to. Or as we said earlier, you don't. And know that you can live with it and you can be okay with it. So please know that hopefully we gave you some good advice to walk away with. And Anika, I'm going to give you the last word for today, because it's usually me, but I'm going to give you the last word for today of encouragement and, what they can take away about forgiveness today.
Okay, yes, today was awesome, and I hope everyone did take something away. They learned something today. Just always know that you can accept what they've done, a person's done. Try to forgive so that way you can have your own healing and your own blessings. Don't hinder yourself, because that's all toxic waste. A little bit at a time, you can relieve it a little bit at a time. If you can't forgive the whole situation, just start by relieving and accepting and forgiving a little of it at a time, and being able to, like Dr. Diamond said, tolerate a little bit of tolerance at a time. Just take it for what makes you happy, and protect your own mental health. That's it. Whatever, if you can't do it, then just stay away from that person, or try to keep yourself in prayer with it, because again, protect your own mental health. That's very important.
Amen to that. And thank you for saying that. And this will be my last thing that I state before we are done for the day: mental health. Because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, I have given you some information about the professionals that are out there that will help you through your mental health. Make sure that you're finding the right person to hire. Please make sure you are looking people up. You can find me on Psychology Today, also Black Girls Therapy for Black Girls. You can find me there as well if you're interested in working with me. The other way of getting some mental health interventions is also, if you are comfortable enough to join Candid Conversations, by all means, you can do that as well. So Mark, we're about to end this show, but we're going to give you, your moment also for what they can take away, our followers. But mental health, make sure you take care of yourself. If you feel that you are not in alignment, remember your mind, body, and spirit has to be in alignment. When it is not, if your mind is out of alignment, the rest will follow. So if one thing is out of whack, try to bring it back into alignment by recognizing that it's going on first. Then you seek help. If you want to begin by journaling first, if it's not working, then you find some other ways of an intervention for yourself. But remember, take care of yourself first. Know thyself, love thyself. And remember to always put yourself first, because we tend to put others in front of us. I need you to put yourself first so you can understand your healing and walk through the process. It is not an overnight process. It's going to take months and years when you're trying to get yourself back to what you see as normal. Okay? And Mark, do you have any parting words before we're done for today?
just the importance of mental health. It is very important, like how we're saying, and all along those lines. And it definitely comes in that we have to deal with on a regular basis and all along those lines. Because a lot of times we go to institutions, whether it's churches or things like that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but they need to have an understanding of what they are getting into and all along those lines. I am a fan of a group here called Heart that helps people even when they're dealing with crisis, whatever that crisis may be, whether it's domestic abuse or other things, but they try to bring that social work aspect into things because they don't want a lot of times our police and our firearm people aren't trained in mental health. So they try to bring a mental health aspect to what they are doing. So we got to make sure that we have these kind of folks that are understanding what's going on in that sense. Because as you said earlier, and I did hear you all in the background, a lot of times we're afraid to go to therapy, or we want to go to therapy in the church or the schools, and a lot of those people are not trained in how to do it. So go to trained specialists and know what they're doing and all along those lines. At the same time, we also need to just have our inner workings, because our inner workings are very important also. We need to make sure that we are plugged into understanding of nature and even going out for a casual stroll or listening to some good music or some other things that can help us in our own mental health journey. So sometimes it's just a good book. Things that will help us in our own mental journey, even like care of a pet, because sometimes those pets can help us as well.
Yes, yes. So again, we thank you all for joining us. I'm just going to put you all in the back real quickly. Yeah, we thank you all for joining us today on the Couch. I hope that we have given you some vital information about forgiveness, mental health. Remember to put yourself first. I cannot stress that enough. As a doctor, it is important that you do always put yourself first. Forgive yourself if you feel that you did something wrong, but forgive you first before you forgive someone else. But always remember, take care of yourself, know thyself, which is meaning that you take time to learn yourself and love yourself and then move forward. Without you as the key, how can you survive? So remember those things and remember what we taught you today, and hopefully you will apply it. As always, peace, love, and tranquility, and take care of yourselves. And we will see you in 2 weeks. And thank you for joining us on the couch. Take care now.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of On the Couch. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found it as enlightening and inspiring as I did. Remember, the stories and experiences we share here are just the beginning of a much larger journey. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, look for the notification on Facebook, and find us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us keep the conversation going and reach more listeners just like you. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep the dialogue alive. Peace, love, and tranquility. Take care, and we'll see you on the couch.